Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're cracking open a really interesting set of sources. They're distilled from a course called Reducing Attrition with Real-World Leadership.
That's right. And our mission today is pretty clear, isn't it? We want to pull out the most powerful, practical tools and strategies.
Things that go beyond just, throwing money or perks at the problem.
Right. We want to arm frontline managers, department heads, people on the ground with stuff they can actually use.
Actionable knowledge to build real retention, boost morale, and develop team resilience.
Yeah.
I have to say, the first big idea here, our sort of shock absorber for this deep dive, it really struck me. How simple it is, but how, well, severe. It basically argues that effective, consistent, day-to-day leadership, not the company benefits package, not the shiny stuff, is the single biggest influence on whether people stay or go.
It sounds almost too simple, but it shifts the whole focus, doesn't it?
Completely.
If you, the manager, are looking for some kind of silver bullet for attrition, this material argues pretty forcefully that you are the most powerful retention tool your organization has.
That really reframes things. It moves it away from just HR policy and puts it squarely on, well, managerial competence.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's untrack that responsibility. Module 1 is called The Reality of Attrition, the Diagnosis. We need to figure out why people are walking out the door. So what do the sources say? What are these drivers?
Well, they highlight three really big ones, things managers often control, maybe without even realizing it. First is a constant lack of clarity. About expectations, priorities, what good looks like.
Makes sense. Confusion is draining.
Totally. Second is poor communication. Maybe it's inconsistent, maybe it's infrequent, maybe it's just not clear. And third, a total absence of meaningful recognition. People feeling like their work doesn't matter or isn't seen.
I think a really crucial distinction here one managers have to grasp is the difference between voluntary attrition and preventable attrition.
Explain that a bit.
Well, voluntary is like someone leaves because their partner got a job in another city. Outside your control, right?
Okay.
But preventable attrition, that's when they leave because you, the leader, failed on those three things. Clarity, communication, recognition, that turnover, that was preventable. And the cost lands right on your leadership.
Exactly. And that really gets to the heart of what the material calls the myth of perks.
The myth of perks. Tell me more.
You could have amazing benefits, right? Unlimited PTO, free food, great retirement plan.
All the shiny stuff.
All the shiny stuff. But if the daily interaction with their direct manager is confusing or feels disrespectful or is just absent, those perks lose their value fast.
So that old saying, people don't leave companies, they leave managers.
It's cliche because it's often true. These sources really double down on that.
Okay. The course apparently introduces a concept to sort of measure this manager-employee connection. Leadership proximity.
Yeah, leadership proximity.
Yeah.
It's basically a way to think about how close, how available, and how genuinely engaged a manager is with their team members. It's about being visible, being present intentionally.
So a manager with high proximity.
Is someone who's consistently there to solve problems, provide that clarity we talked about, give useful feedback for development. They're accessible.
Which explains why the materials insist managers need to start diagnosing this stuff right away. You can't just guess where your proximity might be falling short.
You really can't. You need data, even if it's just observational data to start.
So what does this diagnosis look like, practically? Like on a Tuesday afternoon, what do I do?
The documents suggest running what they call an attrition audit, trying to map turnover trends against known stressors, or maybe leadership gaps.
Okay, an audit. And they provide tools to make it concrete, not just theory.
Yes, definitely. The key ones mentioned are the attrition risk checklist and the retention impact scorecard.
What's on the checklist, for instance?
Well, it's not just asking vague things like, do you communicate well? It gets granular.
Like what?
Like, have I clearly articulated the top 3 priorities for this specific employee this month? Or has this employee received specific positive feedback in the last, say, 2 weeks?
Okay. So it forces you to quantify risks that are directly under your control as a manager.
Precisely.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Model 1 is basically holding up a mirror. Look inward first. Identify your gaps in clarity, communication, recognition before you start blaming external factors.
Right. Diagnose before you prescribe.
But okay, let's say the audit shows those gaps are real. What next? You have to close them.
Which sets us up perfectly for Module 2. Moving from diagnosis to the proactive strategy. Coaching that sticks.
Right. Damage control is one thing, but actively building loyalty is another.
Exactly. And this module really hammers home the difference between coaching versus correcting.
Coaching versus correcting, what's the core difference there?
Well, correction is kind of backward looking, right? Fixing a mistake that already happened.
Okay.
Coaching is forward looking, is proactively building skills, building capacity for the future. It's
Yeah.
about developing the talent you want, not just fixing the flaws you find.
And the goal isn't just better performance, is it? The goal is retention through that development.
Absolutely. The research they pull from highlights how good coaching builds trust. It provides clarity, there's that word again, and maybe most critically, it creates what they call career momentum.
Career momentum. I like that phrase.
Yeah. People tend to stay with organizations where they feel like they're actually learning, growing, moving forward, even if promotion isn't right around the corner.
That feeling of progress.
That's what creates the stickiness. When you, as a manager, personally invest time in an employee's future, their development, well, they become much harder to poach.
Makes them feel valued, invested in.
Right. And the material is really clear. Coaching can't be some dreaded once-a-year review thing. It has to be a daily leadership habit baked into your regular one-on-ones, your check-ins.
Okay, but here's the question I know listeners are asking. How does a manager who's already slammed with emails, meetings, putting out fires, how do they actually do this daily leadership habit without it just becoming more corporate jargon or paperwork?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The real-world challenge.
Yeah.
The resource they offer to help with this is called the Coaching Conversation Framework.
Okay, a framework. What's the idea?
The idea isn't necessarily to add more time, but to restructure the conversations you're already having.
Oh, so.
So the framework guides you away from just asking, did you finish that task? Towards asking things like, okay, what did you learn from doing that task? Or how does that skill you just used apply to your next big goal here?
So it systematizes looking forward, connecting the dots for the employee.
Exactly. It makes the habit of developmental conversation easier to stick to, even when you're busy.
So every interaction becomes like a small deposit in their career bank account. Makes the stickiness mutual.
Well put. You're building that investment together.
Okay, so once you've built some momentum through coaching, you need to keep reinforcing it, right? Keep showing people they're valued.
Which leads us straight into Module 3, shifting the focus now to creating systems that reinforce belonging and performance. The title is Recognition, Rituals, and Retention.
Recognition and rituals. Let's start with recognition. Is there science behind this?
Apparently, yes. The module talks about the neuroscience of recognition.
Ooh, okay.
The sources suggest that genuine, consistent appreciation, especially when it's somewhat public, triggers positive responses in the brain, drives long-term engagement maybe even more effectively than a bonus.
Really? More than money?
Well, the idea is a bonus gives you a temporary hit, right? Dopamine spike. But consistent, meaningful recognition builds a more lasting sense of value and security.
I can see that. But it has to be systematic, you said, not just random good jobs.
Exactly. And that's where the rituals part comes in. Leaders need to design recurring team rituals that act as cultural anchors.
Cultural anchors.
Yeah.
Okay, what does that mean in practice? We're not just talking about Friday beers or pizza, are we?
Hopefully not just that, no. A ritual, in this context, is a predictable event that carries meaning. It communicates what the team values.
Give me an example.
Okay, maybe a cultural anchor is a weekly innovation failure review, where the team actually celebrates what they learned from a project that didn't work out.
So it reinforces that taking calculated risks is okay, even valued.
Precisely. Or maybe it's a bi-weekly peer shout-out session focused entirely on thanking people who helped across different functions, reinforces collaboration.
Got it. Predictable actions that define the real culture.
Right. And for any recognition system or ritual to actually stick and have impact, the material stresses two things leaders must prioritize: visibility and consistency.
Visibility and consistency, meaning?
Meaning the recognition needs to be seen, acknowledged by the wider team is appropriate, and it has to happen reliably, not just when the manager feels like it or remembers.
Consistency is key. That makes sense, especially if the manager is trying to build trust.
Absolutely. So the practical activity for managers here is literally building a recognition calendar.
Like scheduling appreciation.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
It ensures recognition is strategically planned, maybe tied to milestones or certain behaviors you want to encourage. It prevents it from just falling off the radar when things get hectic.
And are there tools to check if this is actually working? Like, are people feeling more recognized or connected?
Yes. They mention tools like the Belonging Signals Checklist and the Engagement Rituals Planner.
What do those do?
They help you sort of audit your efforts. Is the recognition landing as meaningful? Are the rituals actually connecting people, or do they just feel like another mandatory meeting?
Checking the pulse, essentially.
Exactly. Module 3 is really about intentionally designing that psychological environment where people feel safe, seen, and valued. If you do that well, their desire to look elsewhere should theoretically go way down.
Okay, that covers coaching and culture building. Change is almost constant.
And that constant change introduces massive retention risk. The key concept here is change fatigue.
Change fatigue. Tell me about that.
It's that exhaustion, the burnout that comes from constantly shifting.
So if your team is deep in change fatigue, what does the leader need to do? What are the critical concepts?
The research points to two main things: leading with stability and leading with empathy.
Stability and empathy. So if the wider company is in chaos, the manager needs to be the calm center, the anchor.
Pretty much. The team needs to feel like their immediate world, their team environment, is under control and makes sense, even if the bigger picture is fuzzy.
And that requires visibility, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Leadership visibility during uncertainty is non-negotiable. You can't disappear when things get tough.
No hiding in the office.
Right. You need to be present physically or digitally, available, communicating constantly. And this is where empathy and just radical clarity become critical retention tools.
How so?
You don't retain people through tough times by ignoring their stress or anxiety. You retain them by acknowledging it, validating it. Yes, this is hard, it's uncertain, and then providing a clear, simple path forward for the immediate future.
I can see the danger here. If the manager withdraws, or worse, panics themselves.
It creates a huge vacuum. And anxiety and rumors just rush in to fill that space, killing morale and trust.
So how do you prevent that vacuum?
Through a systematic communication strategy, one that builds trust through what the course calls radical transparency.
Radical transparency, does that mean sharing everything?
Not necessarily confidential boardroom stuff. Transparency, as defined here, is more about clearly articulating three things consistently.
Okay.
1, what is known right now.
2.
2, what's currently unknown, and being honest about that. And 3, what the immediate priorities are for the team right now, today, or this week.
Keeping it focused and honest.
Exactly. Reducing the mental load for people already overloaded by the change itself.
And again, are there tools to help managers maintain that clarity when they might be under pressure too?
Yes, they mentioned a communication clarity checklist and a retention during change framework.
What's the purpose of those?
They basically force the leader to pause and structure their message. Make sure it's focused, empathetic, actionable.
Like a pre-flight check for crisis communication.
Kinda, yeah. Asking yourself, am I actually providing reassurance that we have a plan? Even if it's just a plan for the next step. Is my tone empowering, or does it just reflect my own stress?
Self-awareness is critical there.
Hugely.
Okay, wow. This has been a really practical deep dive into the leadership levers you can actually pull to reduce attrition.
It really gets down to brass tacks, doesn't it?
It does. So just to recap quickly, we covered 4 big interlocking pillars from this real-world leadership framework. First, understanding the root causes, Module 1. Really getting that difference between preventable and just, life happens attrition.
Right, the diagnosis.
Second, using personalized coaching to build loyalty and that crucial career momentum, Module 2.
Coaching that sticks.
Third, creating those cultural anchors through structured recognition and team rituals, Module 3. Making belonging intentional.
Recognition and rituals, yeah.
And fourth, ensuring stability, empathy, and visibility while leading through the inevitable change and challenge, Module 4.
Leading when things are tough.
The big takeaway for you listening seems to be that these aren't just like high-level HR concepts.
No, not at all. The specific tools mentioned, those checklists, scorecards, frameworks, they all point towards practical daily habits, things managers can start integrating right now.
It really emphasizes the power you have as a leader to change the retention story in your own team, your own sphere of influence.
It puts the power back in the manager's hands in many ways.
It really does. Okay, so let's leave you with the final thought, a challenging one that kind of ties all 4 modules together.
Okay, let's hear it.
We know from Module 3 and Module 1 that visible, consistent leadership, that high leadership proximity is absolutely key to retention. It builds trust, provides clarity.
Foundational.
But we also know from Module 4 that constant change creates severe change fatigue. And that fatigue affects everyone, including a manager themselves.
Right. Leaders aren't immune.
So here's the question. How can a leader who is personally feeling overwhelmed, maybe running on fumes, struggling with that change fatigue, how can they still provide the consistent, visible, personalized attention and stability that we know retains their team?
Hmm. That tension. Leading effectively when you're also depleted.
Exactly. How do you maintain proximity when you're fighting fatigue?
That really is the ultimate test of real-world leadership, isn't it?